Whether you believe in God or not, you cannot deny that there is a greater energy, a greater existence and consciousness at play within our world and human experience. Let's dive in. Hi there, my name is Anita from Her Divine Path, and I am here to share intuitive, nature-led medicine, as well as ancestral knowledge and some inner recalibration. So, I hear so often, I don't believe in God, religion is horrible, etc., etc., etc. And as someone who has been on a divine path probably since the time I could remember, since I was a child, and who has always had a very strong connection to the divine, to the creator, to God, I don't necessarily believe everyone that says they don't believe in God. And this is why. Because often, if something tragic were to happen in someone's life, or somebody gets terminally ill, the first thing they do is turn to God. They pray. They're not even sure that God exists, but somewhere in their subconscious, they know that there is a God, or at least they believe they have a 50-50 chance of getting it right by praying for somebody's wellness or healing. Now, at the same time, when something goes wrong, it's funny how people are so quick to blame God, and I've done this myself. I did this all of last week. Why are you doing this to me? Why is this happening? And I unleashed my wrath on God. And then the message came in through clear to me. And it was literally something that your family member would say to you. The message came through my higher wisdom, my higher intuition, and said, why do you keep blaming God? Why aren't you blaming the devil? Now, do I believe the devil exists as a form? No, but I believe there is that dark energy that exists, because we cannot have light without dark. So just as there are light forces at play, there are also dark forces at play. So we do know that there are Satanists. We know that these rituals exist that are involved in darker realms, energies, and circles. We are seeing this come to light. I am not personally going to dive into any of the Epstein files, because for me, I feel like God is shielding me from seeing that. I feel like I am being asked not to look at that, to not even indulge, because by indulging myself, I am also absorbing that, and that is an energy that I am being asked to not dive into right now. I am asked to be keeping my eyes clean and pure as I go through my own spiritual awakening and elevate, and as well as I pursue endeavors such as my sacred space facilitator training and other such initiatives that I'm embarking on. So for me, I feel like I will not dive into that, but I do recognize that they exist, and I am forever grateful for all of the people who are bringing a lot of that correspondence to light. Now, back to denying the existence of a creator. I think all you need to do is climb to a mountaintop and stare at the stars in the nighttime. And there is no way you could deny the existence of something so far beyond us. Or look at the stars through the Hubble, the galaxies, and you understand that there is an immense consciousness at play in our world, a consciousness that directs seeds to grow and gives them instructions on how to and what to be, as well as the consciousness that exists when a egg is fertilized by a sperm and a new life is being formed. Either way, there is no denying that there is a greater consciousness and a greater energy at play. And this is a very interesting topic for me, because even as a young child, I never believed that God was a form. I always believed intuitively that he was the greatest energy that could ever possibly exist. And I remember saying to my mom, I think he's as big as the sky. I believed God to be an energy, and I was only 6 years old. But I was also divinely connected. I spent a lot of time alone as a child. I was bullied. And so what happens in those situations especially being an empath, is that our sense of awareness and perception and connection heightens. We literally begin to develop a sixth sense without attempting to, because we are literally in the space for it to happen, for that connection to transpire. When you have to read energies walking into a room, you suddenly become very hyper attuned to how to read energies, that it gets to the point where you could read the sub thoughts and thoughts of people. And I'm not talking about mental telepathy. I am talking about the energy of their bodies, of their thoughts, of their intentions. And that has been me ever since a child. And I'm sure there are many of you out there that actually can identify with this and resonate with this. So during my connections with God, the divine creator, source, as a young child, I just came to understand that he was as vast as the sky, that he was that sort of nothingness, but everything all at once. And where would that thought have come from if not from source himself? Now, do I believe that Jesus existed? Absolutely. Absolutely, I do believe that Jesus existed. I believe he is an ascended master, much like Buddha was, much like Rumi, much like so many others. I believe that Jesus was the ultimate humanitarian, but touched by the hand of God, as well as encompassing and embodying the perfect female and masculine energies. And I also do believe that for him to be given those attributes, they must have also been carried through the Virgin Mary. And I also believe that Mary Magdalene may have encompassed both the actual perfect completion of what the masculine and the feminine is, or perhaps even Jesus and Mary together were that the perfect unison of what masculine and feminine energy is like. But for Jesus to have been an ascended master, he would have had to have embodied, encompassed the ideal of both masculine and feminine energies. And this is where, again, the stories of Adam and Eve come in, at least how I perceive them. It is the masculine and the feminine energies being brought into the world. I'm not going to go into that right now, but what I really did want to talk about is how often many people deny the existence of a creator, or they don't identify with their belief in a creator because they believe that religion is the source of all evil. Has religion mocked God? Yes. Has religion used God to exercise power over humanity? Yes, especially women. But at the same time, I want to be clear here that churches, like all other places, were environments where people could go and practice their spirituality with like-minded people. It is much like holding a sacred circle. And if anyone has been in a sacred circle, you are so aware of how relieving it is to be in a group of like-minded people. The indigenous held sacred circles all the time. It was part of their initiatory practices. It helped people identify and connect to the greater existence of the creator and of each individual person. So let's go back to this idea that there are many individuals globally that deny that God exists, or at least they reject the idea of God. So let's just break it down even further in terms of opening up this conversation. So although there are a lot of people that may reject the idea of a God, at the same time, there are a lot of people who, and perhaps some of those same people, who live in awe. You can live in awe of the sunset, of how beautiful the ocean view is, the most beautiful fish you ever caught, or just the tranquility you get on a boat when you're in the middle of a lake. They live every day in awe, intuition, morality, beauty, love, and wonder. So even though they are rejecting a God, they in essence are not rejecting the concept of this consciousness. So maybe instead of asking people, do you believe in God? We should ask them if they believe that consciousness ends with their skull. Because once somebody has named, or at least admitted to the the fact that there's some sort of order in the universe, and that there is an intelligence that exists beyond the human making, and that nature follows laws that it didn't necessarily invent, and that there is an awareness within the awareness itself and the awareness within the witnesses themselves, then I think humans have already crossed that threshold into believing that there is something vast and energetic that underlies all of the consciousness we are experiencing. They just haven't put a name to it. So ideally, what I'm trying to say is that if there is a pattern, an intelligence, a rhythm, a structure, a coherence, there is a consciousness. And if consciousness precedes us, then it did not originate with us. And when I talk about the stars, what I'm trying to say is that I don't think that for many people, seeing the stars is proof that there is a God. For me, it is the proof of knowing that something greater exists, because it's revealing a scale of things. I mean, if you were to really think about where you are on the spectrum of the universe, if you've ever stared up at a really starry night in the middle of a dark, no light pollution, and you've been able to make out the intricate details of the constellations, and not only that, but follow the spiral of the stars, which I have done so many nights. And that actually came to me as an aha moment as I was sitting on the mountaintop talking to God, talking to this vast energy, this consciousness, and I look up and I started tracing the stars and noticed that they were actually in the spiral. No one looks at the sky and thinks that they made it. Nobody looks at a forest and we feel superior to what is transpiring in the woodlands. We don't feel superior to the fact that trees grow without any of our instruction, or that flowers grow without any of our instruction. Wildflowers, wild trees, animals exist without our instruction. Wild animals exist without our instruction. They follow the rhythms of nature, whose instructions follow the rhythm of something that is so ordered. It's like the cosmic intelligence of the universe. And so something is organizing this, whether we want to put a name to it or not. I personally do put a name to it. I consider it the creator, God, the divine being, the energy, the one source. But there are many who will choose not to put a name to it because they will associate that with religion. Well, there could be a modern denial where people actually say God does not exist. No, but mystery does, and order does, and structure does. And there is a sense of authority there, and a sense of limitlessness. And then, of course, the contradiction. People will deny God, but they will trust their intuition or their gut instinct. They will seek an internal justice for what is happening without sometimes even understanding why or where that justice is coming from. They are in awe of beauty, of the magic of the universe, of our earth, of everything that is held in this space. And they also fall in love. There is love. They know love. And there's meaning. There's meaning. And I think what I have noticed, and I have lived in some very, very dark areas in my life, in a lot of those areas, what I've noticed the pattern is with people who either turn to drugs and addiction, or turn to crime, or even just turn to ways, become wayward, let's say, they feel they have no meaning, that there is no meaning. And they feel there is no meaning because they have lost that connection to the meaning. They do not understand, or perhaps they don't know, or no one has oriented them into this direction of there is a greater consciousness at play. And everything is structured and ordered. And if you know love, or even hate, but if you know hate, you know love. But you know love because of the way it makes you feel inside. You know love and beauty because of when you stare at a flower, how it makes you feel. Or a bird flying over the ocean, a seagull flying over the ocean, riding on the wind. It's majestic. It's literally magic. If you've ever sat at the top of a mountain and watched seagulls just riding the wind in the valley between mountains, it's something that is unspeakable. And so, you know, for me, I noticed that in those moments, the pattern again that I was recognizing is that a lot of these people lost meaning, the meaning of life, the meaning of their own lives, and the meaning of life and of the consciousness of life. For them, it was interesting because a lot of them did not believe in God, or they did not believe in the source or the intelligence that surrounds us. And they didn't believe in the logos, the life, in the consciousness, the divine, the creator, source. And although those may just seem like cultural names, sure, again, you cannot deny the existence of a greater consciousness, because if you are in awe at a sunset and you are moved to tears when you see a calf being born, or you are moved to tears at the sun rising, or you are moved to tears at the way the blue of the ocean is just warming your heart, then, I mean, that in itself, to me, is God working through you. That is the consciousness working through you. You are actually connecting to the consciousness of the universe. And so this is my interpretation. And of course, I can go on deeper with this, but nobody is really asking you to worship God. What they are asking you to do is to recognize that there is a consciousness at play, that there is an energy that is far greater than us, that is orchestrating this entire world, this beauty, this universe, the universal patterns. And for me, that is probably one of the most awe-inspiring things that I can ever be witness to as a human here on this physical earth, in this physical time, space, and reality. And I just want to end on this note. I don't think people reject God or deny the existence of one or the idea of one because they were swayed by religion or because they are ignorant. I just think they were taught. And again, I don't know where my teaching came from. I believe it came from Source himself, from the higher consciousness, the wisdom, again, because of my upbringing that allowed me to open up my channels to receive information. I believe people reject God because they were taught that he is small. They were introduced to a small God. They weren't introduced to the vastness of God. And if you go back and you reread Genesis 1-11, the book of Genesis 1-11, which actually I went back and read last year because I was prompted to. I remember just getting a message, Genesis 1-11, and I sat at 4 a.m. and reread each verse so poetically. And I remember thinking, God is great. The consciousness is great. The universal consciousness is great. So no, nobody is asking you to kneel or even sit down in prayer, but I do think it's time that there is a recognition that something exists that is far greater than us. There is a vastness of energy that is orchestrating everything. And you only have to notice it to understand it exists.